we're on the threshold of returning to cruise operations in Falmouth. Jamaica has returned overall, Ochi, but Falmouth is on the threshold of a return to cruise operation in just a few weeks. And what I can say to you is that up to yesterday, we were again getting requests for, even though we have some confirmation for November, later in November of this year, we were receiving requests again up to yesterday. I even received another booking for November yesterday. So things are moving very, very fast. And so we have to get ourselves ready. We have to, all of us have to be on the same page with the protocols, all the agencies. We have to support each other. We have to work together. At this stage, I can't even tell you what some of the protocols are, what the Ministry of Health is going to require, whether we're going to say everybody must be vaccinated who will be coming in, or we're going to require COVID-19 negative testing. I don't know what is going to be that final decision yet. I know we have a meeting with the health department tomorrow, and we will flesh out some of those things. But what I can tell you at this stage is that we have some cruisers booked for November, and it's not unlikely that they could be cancelled too. Because if we can't come to a point where we satisfy the Ministry of Health that all things are equal, then they could say, no, you can't go ahead. But we are hoping that we can go ahead, and we're depending on all our stakeholders to play a part in us moving ahead, because we can't continue like this any longer. We can't shut down the country forever. We have to demonstrate to the ministry and to the country at large and to our cruise international partners that we can do the thing right, that we're not going to have confusion, that we're not going to be distracted doing all kinds of things and make it into a show. We don't want a show. What we want is to undertake a professional business, observing the protocol, each person playing the part that they're supposed to play, and then retreat to where they're supposed to go, where's their office or their corner. This is not a show for any individual. This is an undertaking for the country of Jamaica, for the benefit of this country, and that is what we're here for. It's no individual thing, it's no individual agency. This is a Jamaica thing, and we need to demonstrate that we can make this work. Other Caribbean islands are getting the cruise lines already. We need to demonstrate to everybody that once the ships come here, we can run it clean, we can run it professional, orderly. If there is a disruption, if there is an issue that needs to be dealt with, we know how to deal with it, and this is why we had the test, what we had recently with the security department, the exercise with the stakeholders to explain and to test ourselves and to re-familiarize ourselves with the protocols. So I'm asking and I'm expecting and I'm beseeching that we take a very professional and business-like approach to the next stage of this reopening, which is hosting the cruise lines and their guests and their crew members. Now, I don't know some of what will happen at this stage. You will hear later. Dr. Fahmy, in our presentation, will outline some expectations, guidelines, where we are, where we need to get to. But there are a lot of different models that we're looking at. It is possible that when the ships come here, well, I know already that they're not coming at full capacity. I think they're running right now about 35, 40, maximum 45%. So they're not coming at full capacity. But even so, there are going to be restrictions. We don't know if they're going to just allow people to just get off and walk through the gate. I doubt that very, very much. Unlikely that that is going to happen. But people will get off, go in buses on pre-arranged tours. Some people will be allowed to go into some freelance tours, take their own taxi here. But those also will be managed by TPDCO. The drivers will be taking the guests to designated locations and be monitored.
So I always tell people, if you see something out of place, just say something to either myself, Mark, one of the security officers that are here. Just bring it to their attention, because we all have the country to protect. So even though an incident happening here, it won't be Falmouth cruise ship here, but Jamaica. So that's pretty much all we need from here. Mark has alluded to most of it already. So just from the security standpoint, that's what we expect. All right, thank you.
We're working very closely with the Ministry of Health, who has been very supportive and giving us great guidance in the best way to start back and to ensure that we as a people are kept safe, which is their ultimate objective. So we started back with one ship, which was the Carnival Sunrise in Ocho Rios, and followed that with the MSC Meraviglia. Both came out of Miami, and how that model worked, just to let you know, is those ships came directly from their home port to Miami, to Jamaica, which made things a bit easier. There was no stops in between. The Meraviglia did stop at their private island, but that's considered an extension of the ship, but they didn't stop in, say, Nassau or Cozumel or any of those other destinations. So that made the process a little bit easier. The model that we're working with right now has been that the ship comes and the passengers, there's 4 categories in which the passengers fall under. The first category is the pre-booked, and we all know that from tradition. There's a pre-book where people book their tours on board, and then they go out on the excursions. These locations that they're going to have to be vetted and approved by the TPDCO in consultation with the Ministry of Health. The Ministry of Health has to give their sign-off. So there might be locations, for example, that fall within the resilient corridor, as we all know it, for hotel guests, but may not receive the approval by the Ministry of Health for cruise at this point in time. So anyway, it's been working very well. All the major attractions, anywhere that basically has a gate, has met with the approval to date. The second category, and these are all for vaccinated passengers. The crew are all expected to be vaccinated, and the majority of the passengers, 95%, are expected to be vaccinated. They recognize that children cannot be vaccinated under the age of 12, so that gives there is some room there. The second category is what they consider the unvaccinated. So these are families that are traveling for the most part with children that fall under the age of 12. So the entire family is designated unvaccinated. And how those work is those are bubble tours. There are, for example, in Ocho Rios, there's 2 set locations that they are permitted to go to, Kanoko Falls and Dolphin Cove. 2 locations have been saying, okay, you can take your unvaccinated group there. It's just, again, a further restriction. So you have the vaccinated that can go on a pre-booked tour, which is a good offering on the ship. You have the second, which is unvaccinated. They can go on a tour, but it's more limited. There's only a few locations they can go to. The third is, which really is not going to be the same here, but the third was when the cruise line said to us, look, we have passengers that don't want to go on a pre-booked tour, and they don't want to, and they're vaccinated, but they want to be able to go and do a little shopping or something else. So what we were able to do in Ocho Rios is, because Island Village Plaza is right adjacent to the port, we kind of created a guided walkway, which is monitored, and the guests are permitted to exit the port and go straight into that location. That location is closed to the public on the cruise calls, so the general public cannot go into Island Village. But the guests can go in, and they can go and Margaritaville and shopping and whatever else may be. The fourth category is what we call a controlled or restricted freelance. So of course, a big part of cruising is the taxi drivers who want to be able to take the passengers out. So again, what it is that the Ministry of Health has vetted and identified a number of popular locations that vaccinated passengers who are not on tour but can go to. So Dunn's River Falls has been vetted and approved, for example, and so taxi drivers have, they've been outlined to them which locations they can go to. So somebody comes off the ship and they say, look, I want to go somewhere, where can I go? And they say, well, I can take you to, this beach, and I can take you to Dunn's River Falls, and I can take you to these locations, and then they negotiate their prices. What the taxi drivers are not able to do is to say, hey, I'll take you up into the mountains and I'll show you this place and I'll stop at my auntie's house, and so they can't do that. So this is how it stands today. What we're trying to, and we're working very closely with the Ministry of Health and every cruise call, let me say, every cruise call has been an education and a learning experience and how we can better it and work it. So what we're trying to get to is a place where we can identify models, for lack of a better word. So we know a ship is going to come directly from Miami or Fort Lauderdale and it's coming straight to Jamaica. They're very low risk. Everybody's vaccinated. The crew are 100% vaccinated. People had to be tested 48 hours before embarking the ship. Anybody that was unvaccinated still gets tested prior to embarking the ship. So these are very low risk people. These are, in fact, in our eyes, lower risk than somebody getting on a plane out of New York and coming in. So we're trying to say, well, that's a model 1. We're going to be a little bit more flexible with that one. A model 2 would be like the ship leaves Miami and it goes to Cozumel, and then Belize, and then it's coming up to Jamaica. So the question is, well, what kind of exposure did those guests have? What's the situation in Belize or Cozumel and so on? And then the Ministry of Health will say, okay, we'll approve that one, but this is a restriction for that one. And then the other two models are less important. They're more to do with home porting and just strange. We have a ship, for example, that's coming into Port Royal, a tall ship. It's a training ship. It's going to be there for 4 or 5 days. So we have to kind of go through those on a one by one. We have a ship going into Port Antonio for 3 days, but it's a vessel that people all live on board. They own apartments on board, 2, 3 bedroom apartments, and they travel the world. And so, in fact, the name of the ship is The World. And but everybody's vaccinated, 100%. All the crew are vaccinated, and they can do full testing on board. Most of the ships have outfitted themselves with baby hospitals, more than they ever had on board. So they are quite capable of dealing with any situation. So it's quite impressive. What we've been trying to do with the guidance of the Ministry of Health is to work our way down the coast, just to let you know. Because depending on the situation, like St. Anne is in a stronger position, for example, than St. James. So they have asked us to kind of slowly open up back, and because it's been a learning experience to be able to do this. So Ocho has worked, and it's worked well. We think this port is actually going to be probably the easiest port to manage because of its sheer size. So I gave you the example where people can walk off in Ocho into Island Village, but they can't walk down Main Street and so on. So, but they have to be guided, and there are people standing there and police standing there and directing them and so on. This port, of course, lends itself to size. It has F&B, it has shopping, it has a lot of things, and hopefully we can maybe even bring in some more things. We'll speak to Jet and his team as to how to really liven it up and even make it a better experience. So those guests that don't want to go on a tour, don't want to freelance, but don't want to sit on the ship, can come in here and enjoy themselves and have a good time. So that's basically where we are. If we can get through these hurdles, we're looking at a very good season, I think. It'll really start to take off in January, but we have calls all throughout November, we have calls all throughout December, and then it just starts to climb back after that. And I think that as long as we can reassure and work with the Ministry of Health and ensure that the protocols are observed and people are kept safe, then I think we're good to go.